So I believe last time we looked at the second section of the 13 postures, and I don't think we finished. We stopped at brush knees. So for this class, we'll basically start there. So again, we'll do a short warm up, and then we will work on the end of the second section and the beginning of the third section, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so first, let's start. Feet together, toes together, and let's take a bow. And feet shoulder width apart, knees bent, feet up parallel. Hips slightly tucked, shoulders relaxed, spine nice and vertical, so the head is lifted up. And let the weight go through your head, your shoulders, into the spine, through the hips, into your feet. Breath into the belly. And bend forward, straighten the legs, roll down.
Keeping neck and shoulders nice and relaxed, breathing. And go back up. Unrolling the spine.
Hands on the kidneys, lean back. And back to center. And again, straighten the legs. Roll down.
And come back up.
Unrolling the spine. Hands on the kidneys. Back to center. And again.
Go back up.
Hands on the kidneys and back. More time, this time swinging from foot to foot. So straighten the legs. Roll down.
At the bottom of the stretch, just gently swing from foot to foot. Back to center. And
come back up. Hands on kidneys, lean back. Now carry the tiger. Right jump. Drop the arms to shoulder height. Reach back. Open the chest. Rotate the shoulders. Squat. Cross the hands. Come back up. Turn the hands over. And again. Oh. Oh. Oh, hold. So holding this basic posture, knees are bent, hips are tucked. Back is rounded, shoulders and elbows relaxed. Breath is in the belly. Oh, go and drop. Now play the Pipa. So going to the right. So shift to the left, turn to the right. Right hand underneath and sweep down, forehead to the knee. And then sweep up. And then inhale. Now bring the hands and the right foot to the front. Shift the weight. Turn to the left. And hold. Hold. Come back to center. Shift. Turn. Hold. 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 Back to center. Now horse stance. Squat. Push the knees open. Get a nice stretch of the inner thighs. And now squat. Keeping both heels on the ground, toes on the ground. If you have to, hands on the ground so you don't fall. And shift. And shift. Toes up. And shift. And back to center. Walk the feet in. Ooh, all right. So let's jump in so that we can have time to go into the details of the 13 postures. So we're going to jump in. Last time, I believe we did we finished at brush knee, right? And just as a recap, it's brush knee, twist step. This is brush knee, twist step. So you want to make sure that there is that shift of the weight, that the transition is from which hand essentially is active. So when I'm brushing the knee, in this case, my right arm, my front arm, is active. So I'm pushing off the rear leg. But when I start pushing with the other hand, I need to shift weight. But it doesn't happen until that moment. So that's where the turn, that twist is, because now I'm shifting actually which hand is active. So I'm going to shift which weight, which leg is supporting. So that's the transition in the middle of brush and twist step, right? And that's the secret of it, right? So you want to make sure that you don't switch, you don't switch weight until you finish this move here. So there's a moment of tension here where this is a low stance, pushing up the rear leg. You should be able to pick up the heel of the front foot, right? And you should be able to stand right here and you're pushing. You should feel that this is the push, right? But we're not leaning forward. The push comes from an opening of the legs, of the hua, right? The hua. So it's this, and there's pressure. So we're pushing with the rear leg, pushing back with the toes of the front foot. So we're not pushing in order to lean on the front leg. We're actually sitting down and opening up the legs, taking that energy in this. We're pushing here, right? So we can just stand right here. Ooh, feel the burn. With that position, you should be able to pick up the heel of the front foot, pushing off there, and now we're pushing. Notice the hands are essentially at this point, again, creating this arc, right? The rounded. Back is rounded, right? And the arms essentially move because the waist is moving. The arms are not moving independently. You're brushing here. And that's going to be, notice how my arms don't move in relationship to my body. It's that turn that brings the arms forwards, the turn of the waist. So the secret here is that once you finish this, which is the rearward energy, when we come here, the arms essentially form, it's almost like you're doing this, right? Like your arms are horizontal, but then you drop, but you have that same sense of rounded back, and then you drop. Right? Of course, you don't want to be fixed. You don't want to, it's the usual caveats. You don't want to be fixed in the position. You're not rigid, but you want to have that sense of expanding the back, rounding the shoulders, and that's what shapes the arms. And then everything else is powered by the legs, that push, and the hips. So you don't have to worry about the arms anymore. You've thrown your opponent back. Now you don't have to worry about the arms. It's just all the legs, that turn of the waist. And then, of course, once you get that feel, like you have that position. In the form, you soften everything up, of course. But you want to make sure that you come here and you have that sense of the power coming from the leg, pushing you, bracing with the front toes. And then releasing that power, and it's making the entire body move forward in that turn of the waist. So even if you're doing it nice and soft, right? It's coming from the hips, not the hands. So it's not the hands leading the movement. You're not chasing the hands with the body. You're stepping, turning, and then the hands become the last detail in the end because you've just held them in a position and then you move through space. And finally, all that power is expressed through the hand. So that's brushing. Okay. So So the important part is that the intent is not in the hands, but is in the waist, right, for brush knee.
Okay.
That's the critical part, because when you look at brush knee, it's easy to see that it's all this kind of big hand waving motion, right? And it's all in the hands, but it really isn't. It's actually in the stepping back and forth, turning of the waist. The hands literally don't have to move from their position in front of the body, and the application would still work, right, without moving the arms.
Where do you position the step forward?
So the step forward, so this is, again, we go back to the application. What are we doing here? In the big step, it's a step that goes both forward and slightly to the side, right? And the idea is you're stepping essentially behind your opponent's foot. So if there's somebody standing in front of you, if you just slide your foot forward, you're going to bump into their foot. So what you want to do is go slide forward slightly to the side, because the brush knee is essentially a trap, so that if their foot is here, so their ankle can't go anywhere, but you're brushing their knee and they're tripping over your leg. That's the idea. Or if they're closer, you're doing this same idea, stepping behind their leg. Now you're brushing, and there's their thigh. Brush knee can be the knee, but it can also be, if they're close, the whole body is right here, right? You're making them trip over your front leg. So the stepping in brush knee is forward and to the side. Not a lot to the side. It's like 1 foot width to the side, if that makes sense. Right?
Front toe points
Forward.
direct forward or slightly in?
Forward. If it was an application, you might want to hook slightly, but that gets, in the form, we're just going to go straight forward. Right? So it's, when you go back, you sit down first, big step slightly to the side, brush knee, shift, and push. Okay? So the foot goes forward and slightly to the side. But it's all done in one single step. All right? So instead of going straight, you go slightly to the side and push. Okay? So that's brush knee. So again, application, think of brushing somebody over your own knee, and they're falling. That's the core of it, right? So the first half is you get them off balance. Second half, you finish the push. But that's what's a nice deep lunge. You're getting into their space, pushing them, your leg, your front leg. And that's why we're not sitting on that front leg, because the front leg needs to be nice and solid for them to fall over the leg. And then you finish. Okay? So now, that takes us to play the Pipa. So we've thrown one guy to the side. So we're here, but now somebody else comes and throws a punch. Play the Pipa. We've discussed this before, but the core idea of play the Pipa is if I'm standing here, power's coming towards me, towards my chest. So I step. So this is it river dance? Right. I step by placing my foot to the side and turn. Step and turn. Step and turn. And you can see that just by moving the feet, I move the entire body. And so it's another one where, as always with Tai Chi, we start with the feet. If the feet are correct, then everything else can follow. If the feet are incorrect, then you're doomed from the start. So the important thing is you step slightly to the side, and the foot is going to be just past your ankle, just past your heel, right? So it's not a big step. You shouldn't feel like you're reaching back, because what we want here is speed, not distance. We're not trying to get away from the punch. We're actually trying to rotate around the punch, right? So it's not about stepping away. It's about turning, right? So you want you want to feel like you're pivoting around your head, right? So the foot goes behind your heel, and your heel is now going to aim at the rear diagonal. Right? So if you're standing here square with your feet squared, foot goes behind the heel or slightly further, because you actually want to kind of clear that foot. Foot goes, the heel is now aimed at the rear diagonal. But as your foot goes to the rear diagonal, you shift the weight and sit. And now I'm going to pick up the front heel, because what I want is for the whole body to then turn with the foot. Because if you just put your heel down and shift the weight onto that heel, you'll feel that now this is a very awkward position, right? So, because right now my hips are pointing this way, but my rear foot that I'm sitting on is pointing this way. So what I want to do is bring all of this in line, which is here, right? So that's what brings the turn, is that lining up as the foot, right? Because the foot that's supporting your weight is always pointing in the same direction as your hips, right? So there's an alignment between your foot, your knee, and your hip of the support of the full leg, right? So when I'm here and I'm on my front leg, my front foot is pointing front, my right knee in this case pointing front, and my hips are squared. So when I put my rear foot to the diagonal, right? Now I want to bring my hips to also point in the same direction, to the diagonal, right? And that's what turns the entire body. And we do that by going immediately onto the toes of the front foot, which allows my front leg to pivot. And now I'm just pivoting, but it's not forcing the foot, it's not turning the heel, it's simply releasing the front leg. So it is allowed to turn, right? And once you start doing it, it's actually quite fast, boom. And you're just kind of falling into that rear foot. But the important part is that you're turning. So you're not just stepping and leaving it there, you're turning, right? Turning. And you're picking up that front heel in order to allow for that movement. Boom. Boom. And everything else in Play the Pipa comes from this movement. Now, there's a punch coming to the chest, I pivot. So even if there's contact, I let that push me, but I fall back onto that foot, right? So there's contact, and that absorbs that move. So let's remember, Play the Pipa, we're here, we do this, here, here. So we have all these arm positions, right? We're here, and we do this, here, boom, right? So just starting with, in this case, with the left hand. So I start, my weight is on the right leg, left hand forward, right? So I just finished brush knee. So my left foot goes behind and I turn. So my left hand, right, is doing a straight, it's just going here. It's a straight line, boom. Boom. Elbows up, right? So you want to feel this horizontal. So essentially, you end up like this, right? Here, 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 here. Palm down. And what you want to think of is there's a punch coming for you, and you catch it. And what you're doing is there's a punch here, and you're holding onto it. You're not grabbing, but you are using compression so that the left hand is squeezing your opponent's fist against your own chest. Right? So that's the trap. They go, huh. So in the form, we're not holding anything. We just come here. Right? We're drawing in. Drawing in. So you see how the arm follows the body. Right?
Yep.
Arm follows the body. So now what is the right arm doing? So why are we raising the hand here to play the Pipa? Part of it is, so this, always imagine there's that punch that's coming in directly to the chest. So we now want to throw that right arm in. And what we're doing is we're starting with palm down, but by the end the palm is up. Right? So when we're here, palm is down, palm is up. And the reason we're doing this is that there's a rotation that happens of the forearm. Because what we're doing here, right, if you just do the right arm here, right, you can see you're trying to find your opponent's arm, right? There's a punch coming at you, you've deflected. If you just do this, see with my palm down, you're just smacking it out of the way. But that's not what we want. We want to find contact, and sometimes the contact can be the shoulder, and then we're gonna roll that forearm down your opponent's arm. And you can see the difference, right? Between just doing this with the palm down and doing this, that rolling, drawing in motion. So just that turning of the hand draws in your opponent's arm. And if you combine that with, right, with the control that you have over the guy's fist, now this drawing immediately turns into an arm lock, and that's why we can have that drag down, that yank at the end, because we've locked the arm. We've drawn in and drawn, right? It's like we're sucking in the arm and drawing it. So that's what this, in a way, it's not really a deflection. It's because the deflection happened because we've turned, right? So the absorbing of the energy happened because we've turned. So this, in a way, it can be the deflection right here. Notice that if you do it fast, you can also do it this way in terms of deflection, right? So it can be here, or if you have the arm here, works the other way. The right arm, though, is drawing in, turning, and yanking. So what you want to go for is the feeling that the right arm is searching. That's why the shoulder is nice and open. You don't want to think of it as a block, because then all of this is tight and small, right? So you're not trying to go, blocking the punch, right? You're not blocking the punch here. You're actually doing the opposite. You're reaching out. You want distance. You want an elongated arm, nice loose shoulder, open elbow, open wrist. Here. If you were to do it with a partner right now, and they were to push against your shoulder, what you'd want to have is your hand to go out there and smacking them in the shoulder, right? So you'd be going bap, just bap, smack them in the shoulder, bap. That's the feeling that you want. It's not a block. You're reaching out, right? Boom, with the arm. And then once you have the contact, now you turn and draw in. Because the idea, and this is true for most of the Tai Chi applications, that even if your eyes are closed, even if you don't really know where the guy is, you just reach out until there's contact, and then you pull in. Very much like push hands, right? You don't have to see your opponent. You don't have to look at, oh, where's the arm and all that. You can feel it. So the arm is sent out, touches, the minute there's contact, it can be the shoulder. Now you turn and draw in, right? So you can see how the whole thing becomes a suction towards your center. But as you come here, right, turn, and now that you've done all of this, that turn, now you draw, you sit down and you draw in. And then you step back and you push. So first it's draw in, step back, push. So you want to have that sense that you're really, it's a trap, is what it is, right? Power comes towards, you absorb it, turn, draw it in, and then push it back. Okay? And that's play the Pipa. But again, it's that the feet have to work. If you just do like this, right, without turning, it doesn't work because then you're drawing it. Well, first of all, you can't draw into anything, and you're drawing it right into your own core. So you need to be able to turn. That's why here, no matter how strong the push, you've removed yourself from the point of impact, right? That's the important part. So no matter how strong the guy is giving you a push or a punch, you're not in the way anymore. You're not in the way, and then you help them go that way, right? Now you've helped them. You could end the move just here and help them just go right through and down, right? With an arm lock, pressure on the shoulder, and now you've just sent them down. If they don't go down, that's when you come back here and punch them in the face. Because Tai Chi is an art of peace. So, does that make sense? So, the first and the core motion in play the Pipa is that drawing in. It's a very yin kind of quality, which is why here this is sitting down, right? You are sitting down on that rear leg because you're drawing in, pluck, right? The minute the weight changes to the left leg, the right arm is now active, full, pluck, pluck. And then we're gonna pick up the foot. And here we're picking up the foot because we're pointing in the wrong direction. That's our front over there. So we pick up the foot, turn back so that now we're pointed towards the front, right? To the cardinal in this case. And then simply rise up and push. And we're rising up and pushing here. And in the form, it's as if you're pushing back with the forearm, but obviously that can be a punch. If you're holding onto the guy's arm, it can just be a shove with both arms to push him back. It can also be, if you use the full hand and you make a knife hand to the throat, to the eye, whatever you want. The idea is once you've drawn it in, now you're going to push back. You're sending that energy back to your opponent in whatever form, uppercut, knife hand, whatever, or simply a shove. Whatever works, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's play the Pipa. It's a nice gentle move. Any questions about it? Is it clear?
It's clear.
All right, so let's move on. So play the Pipa, right? So we'd be doing here. So if we were doing the 13 postures, then we turn. So the transitions here, and I think next class we'll do a class just on the transitions because they're important and they all use the same ideas. So we'll do a class on the transitions next time. So but we'll bring the feet, turn, right? And then we do the second section on the other side, right? With left leading, 13 postures, and then turn 90 degrees, right? Brush knee, play the Pipa, and then 180 degrees, right? Boom. Cool. So that would be our front because we would start it this way. So remember, repeat each section 4 times for the second section to the cardinal directions. And the transition is always going to be 90 degrees, 180, 90 degrees, 180. That's always going to be the pattern that we follow. Except for this one turn for the beginning of the third section, which is from here, and we're going to go to the diagonal. So this is going to be, for the first time, we're going to do 135 degrees, something like that. And then we're back to 90, 180, 90, 180, right? So this one time, we finished, play the Pipa, sit down, bring the foot goes to the cardinal, so that when we shift, we're now facing the diagonal. And that's the secret. It's that simple. You bring the front foot so that it points to the cardinal, and if you shift the weight and sit back down on it, you're now facing the rear diagonal. Right? So then, facing the rear diagonal, we just simply do drag down, which we've done. Exactly the same as the beginning of the second section, right? So we were here, play the Pipa. We simply bring the hands and the foot. Again, edge of the hand leads, palm is facing out. Sit down, and we're now in drag down. Drag down. And now, so this introduces the first, because remember, the significance of the third section of the 13 postures is that it introduces all 8 of our movements. Pluck, this right here, pluck is the first to the diagonal. Then what follows is twist the joint. So pluck is here, followed by push. Twist the joint, rising up, circle step, sit down, twist the joint. All right, so twist the joint. Because we've looked at pluck before, right? Pluck is an attack, it's yanking suddenly. It's not the hands, it's the waist. You can also do pluck sideways. We'll see that in single width, right? That's a pluck, just done sideways. Pluck is, it's an attack. You grab somebody's arm, do a lock, and pull. Technically, you can do a pluck up. So pluck is short, sharp, tied to the waist, right? It's not the hands doing the motion, it's the waist. It's the waist that's moving, and that's what is generating the power. That's pluck. Or yank, depending on the translation. So drag down is roll back, pluck, push. All right? So we're here, twist the joint. Twist the joint is the second of our 8 basic moves. Twist the joint.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you go from pluck to twist the joint, is there a turn on the heel on that front foot?
No, because drag down ends with a push. Your front foot is pointing front. So you're just going to step forward, circle step, and then sit down and turn. So the end of the turn points you to the diagonal. All right? So if you've done drag down, you're aiming. So in your head, keep clear. Right now we're aimed at the diagonal. So my front foot points to the diagonal, rear foot points to the cardinal. When I do drag down, here when I end, my front foot is pointing to the diagonal. That's our line of intent. As I shift forward, I do a big circle step, so my foot comes in and then back out. And then as I sit down, I pivot on the ball of the front foot. All right, so my foot, what used to be my front foot is pointed towards the diagonal. And then my left foot in this case, as I sit, pivot on the ball of the foot so that the heel is now pointed actually to the 90 degrees. So that would be to the front diagonal. Okay? And that's because you'll see we're going to maintain a line of intent that's nice and linear, but we're going to walk through it, changing our direction, but the line of intent remains the same. So if you want that, by line of intent, I mean the direction in which the energy is either coming at you or you're projecting, right? But sometimes, like we saw in Play the Pipa, power's coming one way and we're going to turn to be at the diagonal of it and then come back to it. So we can be aimed at an angle from that line of intent, because that's how we're dealing with the power. We're turning away from it, right? So if I'm here, I'm aiming this way, but the line of intent is actually here, right? That's what I mean. What I mean by line of intent. Your mind, even if though your body's turned to the side, your mind is still that way, because that's where your opponent is, right? So in this case, line of intent is to the diagonal. I've pushed, I step through, twist the joint. My line of intent is over there, but I've turned, my hips are pointed actually to the cardinal, right? So there's that turn here. So what you want to think of when you're doing twist the joint is that it's a variation on ward off. right? Ward off, punch comes towards you and you push it away, right? You ward it off, you block it essentially. So what you want to think of is what happens if you do ward off. Somebody throws a punch, do a ward off, and then you feel that they're pulling back because they throw the punch, it's not going to connect, so now they're pulling back. Or you feel that basically there's not real structure in that arm. You go, that's something I can use. So you do ward off, and now you're going to reach for that elbow because now you're going to bend your opponent's arm. You reach for that elbow and twist it and turn it. So you've done drag down. Somebody throws a punch, arm goes up. That's the beginning of the deflection. And you feel, there's a weakness there. You deflect and like, he's going to bend, you can bend that arm. So you shift forward, and notice in this case here, my left hand is going to turn and reach forward, and this is where you would be cupping your opponent's elbow and turning, right? Because you want to think of your opponent's like this, you're reaching for that elbow to do this. So you have one arm connects, the other hand reaches for that elbow and turns it. Ward off.
So fist area.
Yeah.
Elbow.
Exactly. Because you've done drag down. This is where the hand lifts up. This is the block. There's a punch. You block it, shift forward, find that elbow, turn it. And the hands are in line, right? You don't want to go this way. The hands stay here. And then the final bit is that there's a push in line along that center line, right? Because, so if I'm pointing to the diagonal, I've done drag down, twist, and I'm here. Again, if we use the laws of not being double weighted, pay attention to where your weight is on each leg. So when you just finish drag down, weight is on the rear leg. So in this case, my left leg and my right hand is up in front. So here, this is the ward off. Left leg is full, right hand is full. But the minute I shift the weight onto my right leg, now my left hand is full. So my left hand is actually doing the majority of the work. This is lifting up and here. So now I'm sitting down. My left hand, this one, right, is still full. So this is the one that's actually putting pressure on the elbow, because what you want to think of is, if this is the guy's arm, he tried to like throw a punch, you blocked, you lift that elbow, he's here, but you don't want the arm right here. Because if you keep going, I can get out of it by turning. The goal is to then pin my fist against my own hip, so that if you have control of my hand and of my elbow, now you can push, right? And I can't get out of it. So that's why twist the joint is not this and like going further. Twist the joint is here and here, forward. You want to think of generating a spiral that is moving forward. Right? And that's why we're not going wee, we're going here and pushing, right? It's going to be twist, pressure, push, using that twist, and now we're putting pressure using the hand that's on the elbow and pushing it in your opponent. And you're locking the hand against the... Now, don't get too caught up in that particular application, because what's more important is this idea that you're generating a spiral. Right? Because that's right. So you're basically doing this and moving forward, and the spiral is getting smaller and smaller. Because that's where it's important. That's how it works. It's not that specific. Oh, put your opponent's fist on their hip and twist it. It's the fact that you're generating spirals, because then those spirals can be generated in any way you want. Right? So this. Right, you can think if somebody has their arm here, and I spiral through and I spiral through and I push, that is still twist the joint, because I'm generating that kind of circular power. We'll see it And the second one, we're here. Right? In the second one. So there's different expressions of it. That's why don't get too caught up in this idea that you're pinning. It's more the idea that you're here. You're creating these spirals. But the definition of a spiral is that it's moving forward. It's a circle moving forward. And in our case, it's also getting small. Okay? So that's twist the joint.
So we come out of plot.
Yeah. From the push, there we go. So it's from the push here, and then think ward off. Ward off. Shift forward. Pluck. Because, twist the joint. Twist the joint is a variation on ward off.
So that ward off on the right
Is
arm,
here.
right leg forward would look like that, right?
Yeah.
Come up in a rounded arc, and then
Yeah.
palm
So you
down or slight.
Yeah, so you have all the roundedness. If you were to just do a ward off, we'd have all the roundedness of a ward off. Right? So it's here in terms of structure, all the roundedness of a ward off, and then you're lifting with the opposite hand. And that's twist the joint.
And then we're going to continue.
And then, so you've done twist the joint, and your foot is pointed to the cardinal, and then we're going to shift the weight. And because our foot is pointed to the cardinal, our body turns again. And this is another secret of elbow strike. Because if you just think of, so if I shift the weight now, my weight is on the left, so my right arm becomes full again. Which means we went from here, where the left hand is dominant, is full, to here, where my right hand is dominant and full. So my right hand is doing something, not my left. And so what this hand is doing is deflecting. You've done twisted joint, guy falls down, or he goes for a punch in the family jewels. Deflect. And from there, elbow strike is going to come out. Right? You are here, twist the joint, foot is pointed over there. So when I shift the weight, my entire body now wants to aim in the same direction as my foot, my supporting foot. Right? I was here, foot is pointed this way. When I shift the weight, boom. So naturally, my right hand in this case sweeps the air in front. Notice I'm not moving my right hand necessarily. I am just letting it sweep the air in front. And because I'm sitting down and I've turned, this is a deflection. It can be a deflection against a kick, a low punch, but I just go, deflect. Right? It should feel natural for any man. Just imagine kick is coming for the family jewels and you go, whoa! That's basically it. Right? So because your foot was already pointed in that direction, when you sit on that foot, it's pointed in that direction, so your whole body now turns. And in so turning, and the hand is here in front, you protect. That protects. So that's the deflection. So the secret, elbow strike starts with a deflection, always. Because elbow strike is a variation on rollback. Okay? So you want to start with the qualities of a rollback, which is exactly what this is. Right? It could stop right here. That's rollback. An attack comes to the lower body, I deflect. See how I'm not stopping it, I'm just deflecting. That's rollback. But because this is elbow strike, we're going to transform that into elbow. So we're going to take the quality of a rollback, but because maybe the guy's still coming, we didn't send him all the way through, so now we're going to come here and we're going to put our elbow in the way. All right, so you want to think of elbow strike as a trap. You've deflected somebody, they're coming through, so now elbow. And they're gonna fall on your elbow. So your positioning, right, you did twist the joint, deflect, bring up hand and knee, and now you're gonna brace yourself. You're coming to the center, bracing yourself, so they're fall on the elbow. So we're not leaning forward, you're bracing yourself for elbow strike. Right?
Started with the left
Here.
elbow down. When you
Yeah.
bring that left elbow up,
Yeah, because so we were here, right, for twist the joint. So my left arm in this case is already up. So when I turn, I simply keep it up here. So the deflection happens here. This arm is rounded, but this arm is up. Right, the elbow, so I'm along the horizontal. So when the right hand and right knee come up, right, I'm just bringing in, and now my elbows are along the horizontal. Sit down and brace.
and once those elbows are on the horizontal,
Then they don't move.
and you've got the curve, shoulders
Yeah.
curve,
So back, yeah, of course, I'm exaggerating here, but yes, back is rounded.
feel that circle there of
Yeah.
energy.
And you can feel like once you're braced, you can feel like now you're solid.
Yeah,
Somebody can fall on that elbow and you can take it and they're going to hurt themselves. That's what you want. That's what you're not reaching out. You've drawn them in through the rollback and now they're going to fall on that elbow.
and
And-
if you keep the shoulders relaxed down, with
Yep.
that structure in place, it's relaxed, but there's this solid energy
Exactly.
feeling to it that
And you can feel it. And this is something that actually is in the Tai Chi classics when they talk about being like a bow and releasing energy is like shooting an arrow. So,
I'm starting to
right?
feel that in the leg stances too,
Yeah.
as I
Exactly. So you have that arc of the legs, right? I can pick up the heel. Again, we're picking up the heel only as a reminder. In the application, you wouldn't pick up the heel, but here we do just pick up just to show that you're actually bracing yourself against the toes, and the back is rounded. So you have this arc here and this arc here, and that's the structure, and the spine is connecting both, and that's why this is such a solid, and you're looking in the direction of your elbow. Boom. And that's why this is such a solid posture, right? So so
if you put, if you're pushing forward and steadying backward off these toes, and you put that heel down, and you keep that backward slight pressure, there's this meeting and joining of energy comes up from
Yep. I mean, this generates power. It's like oh, from here, like wow, it really creates this power that you're then gonna direct into the elbow because it's gonna receive your opponent, your opponent's chest, their sternum. If you've done it correctly, you draw them in and then you can see the solidity of that thing. The other thing, remember, the hands are like this. And this is, it's not that your rear hand is supporting your elbow. That's a possibility, but frankly, I don't really buy it because it doesn't feel like it adds much to it. What you really want to think of is that your left hand, though, so the rear hand is controlling the attack. You deflect, and then here, you're controlling your opponent's arm. Essentially, you're protecting yourself, right? Because if you're here, you don't have control over your opponent's arm. The guy just threw a punch, you deflected, and we'll see, we can also do it here. We'll see that in the first one. But you deflected, and then he falls on you. But you want to have that hand here to kind of protect yourself. And we see that immediately in shoulder strike, where the hand is here protecting your face. So we have this idea that we're controlling your opponent's arm, right? So this is a memory aid, right? That your left hand should be in contact with your opponent's hand, or right? You deflect, And then really what you would be doing is this, or here. You're controlling your opponent's arm. You're making sure that they can't hit you. Because otherwise, right, you deflect, and then they can just come back and smack you or whatever. You deflect, and you're here, and your rear hand is actually protecting you, controlling your opponent's hand, right? But in the form, we do it here. And then this transitions immediately into shoulder strike. Right? And if you think of somebody falling onto your elbow, and now shoulder strike, because that's how close they are. So now, and this is why elbow strike can't be rising up and hitting, because after elbow strike, we have to have that length in the rear leg to power the strike. All right, so that's why elbow strike is not a strike. If it was a strike, we would extend that rear leg to hit, but we don't. We keep a little bit of bend in that rear leg, right? Because we're bracing ourselves. So now there's motion, now there's range in that rear leg, and that's what powers shoulder strike. Powers shoulder strike. Yep. All right. You can see there's all this power that's here. Goes into shoulder strike. The hand is here, cupping the shoulder. Again, it's this idea, this memory aid. Your left hand is as active as the right hand. It's blocking, it's controlling. In this case, if it was shoulder strike, see, my hand would be against my opponent's, either his head, shoulder, arm, whatever it is, so that I'm not gonna be hit in the face as well. So shoulder strike is here. Boom. Right, we're rising up on the rear leg, but pushing with the front toes, because you don't want to just shift this way. What you want is that rising energy, and then the waist comes in and bends. Rise and bend. It's not here. There's no power here. You're not connected to the rear leg. Here, you're just leaning on the front leg, and there's no power here. It's from here, you go up and down. Shoulder strike is a variation on press. Press? Yeah. All right, shoulder strike is a variation on press. So if you were to do press here, oh, but it's too short. Boom. You're too close to do press. But it's the same quality of like rising and then boom, expanding, boom, short. I think I've got that right. Trying to remember my own notes. So does that make sense though? Shoulder strike, rising on that rear leg, bracing yourself on that front leg. And this is a twist. Right. Boom. Short and heavy. All right. So let's hold on with you. We'll come back next time. We'll take a look at central equilibrium and the other 4 major moves, but that'll be next class. So hiddenTaichi.com. Go check it out because it's fun. All right. Any questions from you? Does that make